So today we're going to talk about high status or low status behavior. Now, this all has to do with the vibe and the energy that you're putting out into the world. Now, let me tell you the reason why this is important is because we can't expect the world to give us proper feedback, if you will, or the feedback that we're looking for if our energy is very low. And that is if we're not in the right frame, the right mindset, giving the right energy, you're not going to see the results that you're looking for. And so this is so foundational because if we want to create influence and credibility and money through whatever it is that we're trying to do, our energy has a lot to do with it. Now, you can take an amazing product, and if the person presenting the product has very low energy, and I'm going to discuss what low status energy is and what high status energy is so you can get a feel of what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about being energetic on the camera or talking with your hands like I do. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the actual energy that you exude, that exudes from you. What is it? Is it something that is good, or is it something that is not so good? And so is it beneficial or detrimental? So going back to the analogy is you can have an amazing product and have a person behind it who has very low energy, and it's going to affect the influence, the credibility, and the outcomes that you want. You show up on a sales call with low status energy. It's going to affect your ability to close and to win and to influence people in the direction that they should go, okay? And so no amount of fixing a website, a product, or whatever is going to fix the energy level of the person who is marketing and or presenting. Now, whether you know or feel this or not, that when you read a book, it gives you a certain energy and tonality about it. When you turn on the news, you're getting a certain energy and tonality about that. And a course, a podcast, whatever it is, there is a certain vibe that you are getting from the person who is speaking. And so the question is then what kind of vibe am I giving? And is it going to be the kind of energy and vibe that is going to cause me to experience success? That's kind of ultimately what we're looking for. And so this is foundational. You got to check your vibe. What is your vibe? Now, when I first started this journey, I was in kind of an elite event. And this event was with like upscale suite businesses and celebrities from California. The event was in this private mansion on the hills in Malibu. I mean, it was beautiful. All right, beautiful event. Anyways, it was there that I met Tom Bilyeu. And I watched Tom Bilyeu for quite some time. This wasn't the first time that I was introduced to him or to his content. I was watching his podcast for quite some time before I met him. And at any rate, I want to tell you a little story about Tom Bilyeu that brings out this high status behavior, okay? Now, Tom Bilyeu is he's like 30 something years old, and he's restless. And he's pacing the small apartment kitchen at midnight while the fridge motor rattles that constantly wakes him up. And his day job, it pays well, and his future is fine. And that word fine, when he thought about it and when it came out of his mouth, it hit him like an insult. And he catches his own voice saying it. And he begins to identify that he doesn't want to be just fine. But the internal dialogue is like, I'm not that guy who is a leader. I'm not that guy who is disciplined. I'm not that guy who is a builder. I'm not the guy who has presence. And he begins to think about all of these different things, all of these statements that are diagnosing him and keeping him small in his current situation. So he looks out this dark window at the sink and he sees his reflections and he realizes that his narrative and his energy is shaping and writing his identity in real time. You see, the opposing force is not a villain in a hoodie, it's comfort. It is the warm blanket of safety, of fine, status quo. I can ride this out. It is the narrative of you don't need to stand out. You don't need to be different. If you do that, you're going to go to the extremes. So Tom begins to recognize that he hates details. And every time he says he can't, he begins to recognize it. But the narrative that is spinning in his head is that I'm not built for that. I can't do that. And he keeps on going over and over and over again. Okay. So what he does is he grabs a marker and he writes on a cheap whiteboard, and he writes the words that I'm not going to say that I am not anymore. No more I can't. No more I'm not. No more someday. And he replaces them with language that is actually going to feel his future. And let me tell you, the turning point is brutally honest. And with Tom, it came when he decided that he was going to stop negotiating with the version of himself that wants to be liked, and that he was going to choose his future self and his standards over his current comfort. And as we know, Tom Bilyeu exited from a company in millions and millions of dollars. And he started his podcast and launched his personal brand and has a dream and a vision of doing something great inside of his life. But let me tell you that none of this would ever happen if he didn't check his vibe. Like, do you think that we would take Tom Bilyeu serious if he had a podcast about all of his excuses, where he was talking about all the reasons why he can't do something, and he has a podcast and he's talking about all of these different things, and he's not taking responsibility for his life, he's not creating his own weather? Do you think that absolutely anybody would have jumped on to the Tom Bilyeu train? No, nobody would. And that is what I'm trying to point out, is that your energy is that is the attraction method that gets people on board with what you're doing. All right. It is key and it is fundamental. Why is my podcast not gaining influence? Why am I not able to sell courses? Why are people not opting in? Why are people am I not getting on calls? Why, when I get on calls, I can't close? All of this comes down to your vibe. What kind of energy are you giving off? You see, I would do you a great injustice to give you all the tactics and all the stuff and not talk about the condition of your heart and the way you are showing up. All right. Now, as I talked about last time, is that everybody has a dark side. But the reality is when I look on social media, I can see the person on the other side, where there is, if their dark side is in the driver's seat or not. And I can do it based upon the emotions, the energy that they are embodying, and what the feelings that they're trying to inspire in the other person, right? This is the reason why when people talk about hate and prejudice and all these different things, and they stir up anger and resentments and divisions and all these different things, you can immediately tell that the dark side is in the driver's seat. All right. So when it comes to how you're going to show up, what I talked to you about last time, there is a dark side to every persona. Every persona has an overuse of a strength, and that's really what weakness is. All right. All weakness is an overuse of a strength. Let me tell you, details matter. And having details in all of these different things is a good thing. Detail-oriented people are good. But when the gift goes to the extreme and it has to have every single thing spelled out and all the details clear before anybody moves forward, that's not the way life works. And so what is now a strength is now a weakness. All right. And we have these with every single areas of our life. And so the question is, what kind of energy are we showing up with? And is our shadow or the dark side the one who is presenting? Is that the one that's showing up? Or is it the one that is producing positive emotions inside of people? Now, there is a hierarchy of emotions that I'm going to talk about here. And it's very interesting as you study these things out and how you can literally see how successful people have tapped into these things. They're operating from a very high vibe. All right. Now, some of these are contentment. That is that the person is presenting a peaceful, tranquil state, a state of peace and harmony. And this would be kind of like, of the positive emotions, this would be kind of like the very bottom level. We're going to ascend up to some of the most powerful energy and vibe that you want to vibe from, but starting with contentment. Hopefulness, that the person that is communicating is hopeful for their future. That is that they can see their future self and they have the expectation of good in their future, and that they have the expectation of good in your future also. Now, there's nothing worse than getting around somebody who's not hopeful. And that instead of a positive expectation of good in their future, they have a negative expectation of doom in their future. And many of us are consuming content that is the opposite of these things, right? And since we know that contentment and hopefulness are like high vibe and high energy content, we find ourselves then confronted with the fact, where am I listening to stuff that creates hate and division? And where am I listening to stuff that paints this bleak picture of the future that starts getting me into dread? Now, if you've noticed, there's a lot of content out there producing low status stuff. And it's low status because all it does is inspire people to live in fear, to get them in scarcity. Now, their mode of operation is if they can get you scared and get you in fear, then you can be manipulated, right? And we see the kind of content all around. Next is optimism. Is the person optimistic? Are they upbeat? Do they smile? Are they connecting? All right. Do they have positive beliefs? Beliefs that empower others? Or are their beliefs detrimental? Are they going to lead you into mental illness or some sort of personal suffering? Let me tell you, there's all kind of ideologies out there that lead you to personal suffering. And it baffles me that, my father was one of these men who had an ideology. And you can clearly see that it wasn't working in the fruit, in the outcomes of his life, right? It was producing a lot of antisocial behavior. It led him in prison multiple different times. Most of my life, he was in prison. And you never stop to check the feel and the belief system and the ideology that produced this kind of results. And that is, we have all kinds of stuff out there that are very low energy, low status stuff that produce terrible results in people's lives. Now, this should behoove us to begin to step up, because those are the people that are getting heard if we don't show up. Those are the people that get to control the algorithm because we're not showing up. Now, the next is kind of enthusiasm or eagerness. Is the person communicating? Are they happy? Are they eager to be there? All right. Passion. Are they passionate about what they are talking about? I don't think you can listen to any of my thing and not find out that I get extremely passionate about the things that I'm talking about. I love communicating this kind of stuff. We're at number 2. We're ascending up. Joy appreciation is the person that is communicating, empowering other people. Are they a promotion of love and freedom, goodness inside of the world? All right. Now, most of the pyramids have stopped there, but it's in the last couple of years, they have discovered that authenticity is at the top. Now, we thought joy and appreciation was at the top, but in reality, For somebody to show up as their most authentic self and not have to hide anything or pretend or wear a mask or all these different things. This is actually the highest vibe that you can begin to present on social media. All right. So check your vibe. Are you part of the people that are giving the goodness into the world? Or are you a low vibe, low status person? Now, 20 years ago, I read this book. It was called Fish. And if you're old, you've probably read it because it was a top seller and it went around the business circle. And basically, it was about a fish market, an exceptional fish market. And what differentiated that fish market from all other fish markets was they were a high vibe fish market. All right. All the other fish markets, you go there, you tell them what they want. There's no fun, there's no joy, there's no enthusiasm, there's no nothing there. You just ask for your fish and you get the fish. Well, these absolutely genius people tapped into high vibe energy and high status behaviors, and they begin to create a culture around joy, appreciation, passion, and enthusiasm and positivity, all the high vibe stuff at the top. And so they created a culture that just was this. And they begin to show up. They begin to have fun. They begin to throw fish in the air and everybody's laughing and having a good time. And they're chopping it up and they're just absolutely amazing vibe and culture. You couldn't help but stop and see what the heck is going on here, because these people are having so much fun and filled with so much joy and passion that we got to stop and check it out. Now, who do you think made more money in the fish market business? Do you think the pessimistic drum, no connection, no passion, no optimism fish markets, do you think that they beat the other one? Absolutely not. In fact, it turned into an empire, multi-million dollars because of the high vibe. So the reason why I bring this up is because you want to be that high vibe person. You want to love what you do. You want to put on a smile. You want to be filled with joy. You want to appreciate people. And you want to show up with a sense of enthusiasm that actually attracts people to you. You see, the closer we are to joy, the more easy we attract what we want. I mean, you can take that to the bank and cash it. I'll tell you one more time. The closer we are to joy, the more easily we attract what it is that we want. What we say repeatedly up here, it's a revealer. In fact, the Bible says that the heart is the reflection of the man. You want to get a reflection of your inner world and your subconscious behaviors, all you got to do is listen to the script. Because what we are saying to ourselves is an internal dialogue of a limiting belief that we have agreed with and we have attached ourselves to. And what you believe on the inside shows up in how you carry yourself, okay? That is the way that you show up, the way that you present yourself. This is all correlated to the vibe you are carrying internally. And how you carry yourself is how people view you. People are just mirroring back the vibe and the energy that you are given. So the dialogue inside of our head and the words that come out of our mouth are revealers. If we are talking in a way that is a lot of low energy, a lot of victim talk, it's going to reveal it. And so the best thing that you could do to get into high status, high energy is to assess the words that are coming out of your mouth. If they are low energy, if they are victim talk, if they're animalistic, impulsive, all of these different things, you're going to have to deal with your vibe and deal with your energy if you ever think that you're going to get success. All right? High status. Now let's go into Alex Hormozi. Now, anybody in this world is very familiar with Alex Hormozi. You know that he started out in just this strip mall gym office. The office was barely big enough to fit a desk. Now, he had a very humble beginning. Now, he was there sitting there one day with the laptop open, and his bank account balance was so small that it's contemplating just kind of throwing in the towel. There was an opposing force, but it wasn't a competitor down the street. It was his internal dialogue and what he was thinking. And so the temptation was to give into scarcity and desperation mode. Am I going to get into low vibe scarcity thinking and get desperate and begin to listen to that voice? And he says that that voice was telling him to drop the price, be like everybody else, be nicer, start saying yes. When people want a discount, give it to them. So the next day he has a consult with a guy who keeps texting him, I'm interested, but only if we could do a deal. And Alex reads that again, and he feels the pull and the scarcity and the desperation in the communication. And so he walks out into an empty gym, and he's tempted to come to the meeting in scarcity and fear and to make a deal. So he's sitting there with a guy, and the prospect arrives. He's guarded. He feels like he has the upper hand. And they sit, and the guy leans back in kind of a power posture with his arms crossed. He says, I like it. I like what you're talking about, but I need a discount. And Alex doesn't flinch. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't explain anything. He just looks at the dude and says, no. The guy is thrown off because he come in here with a power stance, energy, and all this different thing. And the guy kind of gets a little bit offended, and he goes, what do you mean no? And Alex responds again. He says, this is the price. This is the program, and the program works. If you want results, then say you're in at this price. If you want to be cheap, you're not my kind of person. Whew. The guy tries one more time, and Alex stays steady. Then something begins to flip inside of the guy, and he begins to change because he's finally facing somebody who knows their worth and knows their value. And so he pulls out his card and says, charge it. Alex swipes it. And I want you to question what it is that happened in this scenario and how he showed up. Because we have the temptation all the time to show up in fear, scarcity, and desperation. You show up in the world with fear, scarcity, and desperation, even if you don't feel like you're giving off that vibe, you are. I mean, we're just intuitive creatures. We can pick up on the energy that is being presented, all right? So Alex begins to display high status. Now, high status people, they don't outsource their confidence. And that is their mood and their self-worth comes from the inside and not from the outside. Now, this is probably the main differentiator between those who are successful and those who are not. Those who are not determine the outside forces, the weather, the economy, the oversaturation, whatever it is. And they say that this is it, and this is the reason why I am what I am. And they start talking in victim sort of communication. That is, they have outsourced their confidence. Now, most of success is an inner game. Yeah, there is a skill set that you need to learn, but there is no amount of skill set going to fix a faulty mindset. There isn't. You can have all the skills in the world, and if your heart is bent on low status thinking and low status energy, it's not going to help you one bit. It's not. So we have to check our vibe. Are we getting it outside or are we getting it inside? High status people, if you've noticed, their standards are not negotiable. I've been around high status people. They don't jump to the whim of other people's stuff. You contact them when they find a time inside of their calendar. They have a set time where they answer messages and get back. You're not going to find them responding quickly to anything. They'll get back to you in their allotted time and schedule because they are not going to allow people to break their standards or break their calendar. And that is, they know their values, they live by them, they don't bargain with them, and they don't allow others to intrude upon those. And that is, they have boundaries. Now, it's amazing the people in my life that I see them say no. It's very inspiring because most of my life I've been a yes man in the sense of like, if it feels good, yeah, let's do it, man. Oh, you want to do that? Yeah, man, let's do it. And that since I've been a yes man, and then starting to get around people who are high status and assertive and hearing them say no, this is really, really good. It was really, really good for my growth because we need to say no a lot more than we say yes. Boundaries. You hold the line. You don't apologize for it. You don't explain it. You don't make excuses for it. You see, all of this energy is coming off in the way that we communicate every day. If you do a 30-minute episode, like I'm doing right now, it's probably end up being an hour. I am long-winded. The reason I do that is because of books. I'm creating books. And so the more content, the better. Okay. But it won't take long inside of a conversation to determine what energy that you're putting off and if you are this kind of person or not. I'm allowed to want what I want. Man, this is high status energy. A lot of us, when it comes to wants, we are ashamed and or we push the wants and disguise them in some way or fashion. And we often don't give ourselves permission to get what we want because we don't particularly need it. High status person, you ask them what they want, they know what they want. You ask them where they're going, they know where they're going. There is a certainty and there is a clarity. They're not trying to explain to you why it is they want what they want. They want it. They have already given themselves permission to want it and to go get it. In fact, it's my personal belief, and it's something that I'm grabbing a hold of, is that I already have it. My future self and what I am looking forward to and what I see, it is mine to seize, have, and to hold right now. And if I hold it right now and I grab a hold of it, then I'm operating from a place of power, not from a place of lack. High status people, they protect their people. That is, they cover their people. They expose faulty logic. They protect the mission. If they feel like there's something in the market that isn't good, they point it out. They lead with responsibility. High status people are able to laugh, have no problem using humor, have no problem smiling, have no problem teasing, have no problem doing banter. They can stay playful and exude a positive joy without feeling weird or needy. High status people lead others, and I would say that they do so without even trying. Because if you are taking massive action for doing something good and great, and you are operating from the high vibes, you can't help but lead because the majority of the world is not doing that. That automatically puts you in the status of high status. You can't help but lead. You are going to lead by default. The Bible says this, that deep darkness covers the world and deep darkness the people, but the Lord shall cause his light to shine upon you. Can't help but begin to lead others. And if we are leading others, then we are setting the pace. We're setting the tone. All right? We don't check the weather to try to calibrate ourselves. We don't go into culture, into the world and see, how should I show up today? Yeah. High status people take risk. Yes, they access risk, but high status people move. They're creating momentum and energy, enthusiasm. In fact, in the book that I'm reading, How to Win Friends and Influence People, one of the main traits he said is the ability to inspire enthusiasm among my people. That people don't get paid the big bucks for knowledge and skills per se. They get paid the big bucks because of their ability to create culture and to win and influence people over and to create momentum and energy that is needed for success. High status people are building relationships, networks, and connections. Low status people are scared. They are hiding. They are not networking. They're not thinking win-win partnerships. They're not expanding inside of their mind. They're just not in the frame of interdependence or anything like that. High status people are looking for experiences. This is why you will see them travel. They're sophisticated. They have new experiences. They go to different places. All right. So you can kind of see kind of the high status vibes, and I can go on and on in that, but I want to get into the low status behavior. Now, many of us know Scott Calloway. Now, he's backstage at a conference in Manhattan, and he's got his suit jacket off, his sleeves are rolled up, and his mic pack is ready to go. He's about to step on stage, and he hears through the curtain the crowd, and they're laughing and they're clapping, and he hears all of this stuff happen behind the scene. And all of a sudden, his phone begins to buzz inside of his pocket. It's a notification, then another, then another, then another, and just stacking notifications on his phone. And he knows kind of what's going on because the people in the crowd are giving feedback in real time on social media. He's tempted not to check, but he checks anyways. 2 minutes before he's about to go on, he jumps on social media and begins to check. Now, there are a lot of affirming statements about the event and about who he is and what he's about, but there is one that is the only one that he sees. And you know which one it is. It's the trash talker, keyboard warrior, somebody who has something to say, but would never say it to your face. You know the kind, right? And he types, "He is just a bitter man." That's it. He doesn't give any evidence. He just gives his judgmental criticism and opinion. In fact, that guy would benefit greatly if he read How to Influence People. And so he reads it. It's the only thing he sees, and he begins to internalize it. And he starts getting in his head. And it is the worst time to get in your head. 2 minutes before performance time. And he's sitting there and he wants to fire back, right? With anger and with an insult, like we all do. How can I prove that I'm not needy while acting needy? He wanted to walk on stage with that vibe and energy, imagine, and begin to talk down to everybody because of the pain and rejection that he just experienced. And so he catches himself in a mirror in the TV looking back, and his jaws are tight, and he can see the energy in his posture and everything, and he sees that, and he begins to make a switch. You see, the opposing force is not really the comet. It's the addiction to approval. It is the guy who always needs to be right. It's the guy who always wants to be seen as a winner. The guy who doesn't want to receive any feedback whatsoever. And so he chooses to release and let go before he walks out on stage. And he presents a whole different kind of vibe and energy. Okay. Now, it won't take us too long, whether we're in a church, whether we're listening to some of these detrimental gurus that are out there, to pick up on the vibe and the energy. And it is very angry, and it's filled with scolding. In fact, one of these entrepreneurs went to an event a couple years ago, and he's one of the vibes that I'm talking about. And that is fear-based intimidation, control, authoritarianism, manipulation, all those different things. And he gets up on stage and he browbeats everybody. And his total vibe and his energy is something wrong. And everybody in the crowd begins to experience the spew and the vile that is coming out of the man's heart. Now, I don't mean to criticize or to find fault with him in any way or fashion. This is just a reality of whatever vibe you have within is the vibe that comes out. And inside of most environments, that if the person is a low vibe person and they have the mic, the only thing that they can produce is other low vibe people. In fact, they're going to pick up on their criticism. They're going to have the same judgments. They're going to have the same detrimental mindsets. They're going to have the same heel that they're casting stones from. They're going to have the same villain that they're pointing out that's evil. Now, it's all low vibe people that have a mic. And so we have to decide that we are not going to be that person. Right? Now, you can spot a low vibe person on social media because they're constantly reactive, emotional, quick to get rattled. They share opinion that's polarizing, and then they start going in the thread and start getting offended and defensive and spiraling for hours. Low vibe, low energy. It's not going to get you anywhere. Okay. Now, the second one is self-depreciation. You get online and you start depreciating yourself. Start talking about how you're no good or good for nothing or that you're trash. The reality is that we teach people how to treat us. If we show up with high status energy, we're going to teach people that we are high status people. We are worthy of consideration, and the words that we say should carry weight. All right. We teach people how to treat us. Now, one of the biggest ones that we have to overcome is the scarcity one. That is because a lot of people starting out, they haven't got a lot of stuff figured out yet. If you're starting a business, launching a coaching program, a course, a book, or whatever it is, like you're at these kind of beginning stages and you really don't have it all figured out yet. And so you might be in scarcity mode. You might be operating for black. You might be too focused on your deficiencies. And so if we show up with the mindset that I'm broke, there's no equation where showing up with scarcity and a broke vibe is going to pay off for you. The energy that you're giving off, why would I want to be like you? And why would I want what you got? That's kind of like somebody's talking about, can take you to live your best life now, and they're over there sucking on lemons. Like, no, nobody's going to take you seriously, right? So the best thing that you could do is to get out of low status and to get into high status and to assess your communication in the way that you are presenting yourself. In what kind of vibe am I giving? Am I trying to win the approval of others? Am I doing things for status and for likes? Now, one thing I've noticed is everybody's getting a little bit performative lately on social media. And I don't think it's going to work out for them in the long run. I really don't. I think they're getting clicks and views now, right? But I know for me personally, when I watch them, I used to look up to these people, but now they're getting like performative, like they're putting on a show for people, and they've downgraded into like a clown or to entertainment and all these different things. And I see the status kind of slipping and slipping and slipping. I'm like, I don't know if they understand and get the new vibe and the status that they are now presenting, but it's hard for me to take them serious now because you have took on the persona that you, I guess, are just going to be the class clown. And if that's all you want to be, then that's fine. But to take an entrepreneur who built a brand on something great and then demote yourself to the class clown where nobody takes you serious, and that you become like a political commentary on what is going on in social and all this different stuff, I'm like, that can't possibly be good for you, right? High status people forgetting what made them high status and start tapping into low vibe energy and watching them kind of decrease and decrease. It's like, whew. Same thing happens with entrepreneurs that go into the drug world and start going into inner deep dives with themselves and start talking in language that nobody understands, and they're having experiences that nobody gets, and they created this high status persona, and now all they talk about is this other stuff, and it's like you just went from high status to low status. You just went from something amazing to something that sounds very low status. All right. I think you get the gist of it. Let's wrap this up. No amount of product or anything is going to change your mindset and your heart. And if you are operating in low vibes, anger, hate, jealousy, all of these things that are very, very low status, all you can expect to attract to you is angry, jealous people of the same kind. If you want to attract the people that are going to create influence and move you forward and build your empire, you're going to have to tap into authenticity. You're going to have to tap into joy, to gratitude, to honest and sincere appreciation, to peace and tranquility, to an inner contentment if you're going to want to be successful. All right. All right. I'll see you on the next one.